What is prayer to you? Put into the chat a spiritual connection to a higher power. And I struggle with it at times and I feel guilty. I need to remember to thank God more often and not just use him as lifeline. I love that. And here's the thing. I want to talk about prayer and how simple it is, but I also want to share with you a 5-step way to pray, which is based on my training as a spiritual practitioner, but also in relationship to the Lord's Prayer, which is if you read the Bible, and I'm not here to preach about the Bible because I believe in all religions, not the religion part, but the spirituality part, that it correlates with that. And then more importantly, how we have translated this thing called the Bible so many different ways. And if any of you have ever played telephone tag, you know how the translation doesn't get through, even if you're speaking the same language. So the parchments and the things that they were made on many, many, many years ago, before even Jesus, were in Aramaic, and Jesus spoke Aramaic. And so I'm not here to talk about it from a Christian perspective, but more from a Christ consciousness perspective. And Jesus said, this is how you pray. And that's when he gave us the Lord's Prayer. So I want to start with some foundational components of how I teach, number one, but also about this bigger vision of the world. And there's really two things. God is everything there is, everything is one, and love is that guiding force. Those are two basic principles. So if God is everywhere, then we are part of God. And I want to talk about this from the perspective of what that means for us as far as what it looks like to actually pray the way Jesus gave us the direction to pray. So, the first thing that I want to share is I'm going to put some links in here, a link to a kid's way to pray, and then I'm going to give you a Google Drive that I'm going to follow along with tonight. So, the very first one is the kids' way to pray. And I love this so much because it really breaks this 5-step process down really simply. So, as we break it down simply for a kid, then we're going to expand it a little bit more and talk about the Lord's Prayer and how that 5-step goes into that, and also the Aramaic translation of the Lord's Prayer. So, if you look at the treatment, the steps of treatment truly are so simple. God is, I am, I know, I am grateful, and I release and I let go. And so, what I want to share is that prayer is not begging. A lot of times we believe that we are supplicating and asking God for something special, when the reality is all we're doing is aligning ourselves with this glorious oneness that we already are, because we're already whole, complete, and perfect. And we don't really need to ask for anything. We just need to activate what's already inside of us. And one of the things that I always loved about Jesus was he said, "You are as you believe." He's not doing the work. He would never be able to heal anyone or do the miracles that are shared in the Bible if he was not looking at the person that could believe that. And as a matter of fact, there's even some stories in the Bible of how Jesus went back to his hometown and he couldn't do the miracles because the people that he was working with weren't believing it. So it's not about asking, it's not about begging, it's about aligning and activating. And nothing is outside of you because it's all moving through you. So this is what's so beautiful about prayer. And I've been teaching about manifestation for years and years and years, and I teach about abundance. And people want to always have a special get it quick done kind of process. And really, it isn't. It's about creating that shift in yourself to create the things that we say we desire. It's really about remembering who you are in relationship to your source, because we are all one. So I want to talk about those 5 steps from the perspective that the first two I'm going to go over, and then we'll go into the next three in just a second. But the very first one is God is. So if we start with the premise, because that's what we have to do, I'm almost feeling like sometimes I'm a scientist because we have to start with a premise. And the premise that we start with is that everything is oneness. If we start with everything is oneness, it's not the duality of the world that we live in. It's only as human beings that we create this separation that somehow or another we're different from one another, and that someone is bad or someone is wrong or someone is right. And it truly, there's only oneness in the world. That's it. That's it. I mean, if we even stop there, that's pretty remarkable if we just began to live our lives that way. Now, granted, I'm not going to say that I do that all day, every day, because I'm a human being and I get excited and I get upset and I get angry and I have judgment and all of those things. Those are human conditions. But the truth is that the oneness is God. And I say God and universe and source and higher power, and all of those words mean exactly the same. And as I said in the very beginning, I believe in all religions. If all religions have some spiritual truth running through them, a golden thread, which they do, it is that it is this oneness. It is this complete oneness of this all knowing. If you want to say it's knowing, but we construct everything in our brains as knowing from our human perspective. So we have to begin to expand our consciousness to say, oh my gosh, there's so much more than what I believe in this finite brain. That's limited. And what we're talking about is this unlimited universal consciousness, which is infinite love and intelligence and the creative force that we're not separate from. And that's the beautiful part about it. When we're talking about this 5 step prayer process I'm going to talk about, I call it a treatment because it really is treating ourselves to know the truth of who we are. Because if we know who we are, then there is nothing to fear because we are that infinite beingness. We are not finite, even though this physical body is finite on this planet. That does not mean that we are finite. It's very interesting how we get so attached to this physicality that we live in. And the truth is that once you can surpass that, and I think I shared this on one of these calls a week or so ago. I was recently on a road trip and I started listening to a book called The Purpose of Life. It was about people sharing near death experiences. And without question, every person that's had a near death experience experiences this oneness. And they're sometimes really challenged to find words for it because if you meditate, or if you've had a spiritual experience, or you've had an out of body experience, or a plant based medicine experience, typically you will experience that oneness because it's really almost unexplainable in human words because it is so profound. So, what we do in prayer is we begin to see the truth of who we are, affirm that truth, and then realign with that spiritual truth. So, if God is our very first step in that 5 step process, the second step is unification. So unification means that we are unifying then with this source. So if we take the idea that God is all powerful, God is one, God is all there is, I have to be part of that. If that's all there is, I'm not separate from it. So the declaration in the unification is I am not separate from God, which is sometimes challenging for people if they've been raised in certain traditions to think that somehow God is outside of us or God is somewhere else, when the reality is, if you can imagine you're swimming in an ocean and a fish says, where's the water? Right? We're in it. We are it. We are the expression of that one. So the declaration or the unification, the I am portion that shows up on the kids version is I'm just not separate from God. I am the same power that creates worlds, lives in me. So take a second and just think about that for 1 minute. What does that feel like if you were to grasp and really integrate that that same power lives in you? You are an expression of that divine. And this is where we collapse the separation in this step. If God is that, then I am that. If God is all there is, I'm it. I'm one with it. That in and of itself is so profound that it really begins to shift our consciousness in a way that's really truly remarkable in the process of being somebody that's prayed for other people. And the other thing is that when we're praying for other people, we're always just praying for ourselves, as Jesus did in his process. He was praying knowing that he knew these principles. The third component is, I'm going to go through these a little quickly, and then I'm going to go back to compare them to how they look to the Lord's Prayer and how they look in the Aramaic version. And then we're going to do practice. And you're going to be able to practice portion of this realization. So that's the third step. And this is not an affirmation, because a lot of times we get so stuck on, I've heard people talk about affirmations for decades, and I always felt like an affirmation was writing on the chalkboard of a kid that pulled ponytails of a child or a girl in grade school 100 times. I won't pull her ponytail anymore. And then he goes, after 100 times, he goes out and does it again. Because affirmations, if we don't get that step of the third step of realization and grounding this knowingness of what I'm about to share with you and how to create that third step, we aren't going to understand the truth of the shift that will happen within us when this realization is complete. You can pray as many times as you want, but a true prayer only really needs to be done once if you make the shift. The shift is from the mind, the heart, and the gut, because that is the trajectory of our mind, if you will, our consciousness on the planet. It's the feelings, it is the thoughts, it is the actions, it's the whole holistic being of us. And if we speak this outcome as if it is already happening, but we feel that shift, not an affirmation, I am love, I am abundant, I'm rich, I'm whatever. Those affirmations, your brain, your unconscious mind just repels them because it doesn't believe it, because it's been programmed to believe something else, which we've done a very good job of programming ourselves. So part of this third step is that feeling, that downloading, that clicking in, if you will, getting into the pocket of what it is that you actually are believing. So that's the realization portion. And it's also not asking. So we'll go over some of how that looks. It's not begging, it's knowing. So there is such a huge crevasse between an affirmation and a knowingness. And I know you probably have had experiences where you just knew the truth and then you went in a different direction because of the knowingness. If we try to convince ourselves of things, that's generally going to repel against our unconscious because, as I said, we've built it in a certain way to believe a certain way. The fourth step of this prayer is the gratitude portion. It is the thanksgiving. And it's so critical. So you think, well, if I've already felt it and I already know it, and I've already said everything is one, God is one, I'm one with it, here's my realization. Why do I need to be grateful? We have to be grateful because that solidifies with this magnificent universe that we live with, this consciousness that we are thankful for it already being done. So I'm going to use the example of if you went to a restaurant and you sat down, the waiter came and took your order, and it's whatever the specials are. They rattle off the specials. You say, "Oh, that sounds delicious." You give them the order, and they go back into the kitchen. But before the waiter leaves, you say, "Thank you." Why? Because you know that they are going back to deliver that order. And that's the gratitude. That's the expectation. That's the faith in action that what we have just realized is already done. And of course, we would be grateful. Gratitude is the gateway to everything. And I talk about that in my book. I actually did 2 chapters on gratitude because when we get into gratitude, there is a complete shift in everything that is going on with us that is so beautiful and dynamic. And appreciation before evidence is that solidification of who we are downloaded into our beingness. But then it also sends out that electromagnetic energy to this beautiful universe, to this consciousness that's everywhere all the time, that yes, we believe. And that's truly what Jesus said is you are as you believe, not what you think. Not when you think, oh, I believe, I believe, I believe. That's not that belief. The belief is the being, this energy that you surround yourself with that's locked in that knowingness. And then the fifth step in this process is the letting go. So, one of the things that we do have challenges with as humans, and especially in today's world, is immediate gratification. I need to see it right now. Like I typed it into my computer, I typed it into the universe, and I want to see it right now. And that is where we let go. We release it, that it is already complete, trusting, having that faith, the divine timing and intelligence is now rearranging everything to manifest this moment of realization. And it's so key if we allow that happen. It's the allowingness. And I use words like surrender, surrender to win, because it's that holding on, it's that gripping on, it's that restriction that causes us to lock down and not in a way to receive. So we really want to go to all 5 steps. Can you trust it enough to release it? Is the final version of this. So look at the Google Drive, bottom of the document. I'm going to give you some examples. So this is not hard and fast by any stretch. This is about you recognizing yourself and your own energy. But what I want to do is I want to give you some examples of what this looks like when God is everywhere. You can say things like, Spirit is one. So, what you're doing is you're setting the table for this conversation that you're having with you and the one. When the Aramaic was originally translated, it says I am, but it's I and I. It's the little I with the big I. And as you begin to connect to this consciousness, to this field, to this God, to this presence, then you really begin to say, oh, wow, it's everywhere. And so here's some examples. Spirit is one infinite mind, heart, and presence, expressing its infinite potential and endless diversity. Or something like God exists everywhere in the universe, therefore, God exists everywhere. There is one reality, one life, one mind, one creative process. There's one power and presence for God in the universe. This presence is everywhere, moving in, through, and around. So I use those examples. Each one of those lines can be the whole step one. Or a lot of times people like to make them very flowery, very much so that they begin to feel that energy. It isn't about the how many special words, how many flowery words, how exciting this can sound. This is about you really finding that locked in place where you know that God is all there is, that this one infinite mind is the essence of this universe that we live in. Then step two is I am. So what we're doing is we're taking the knowingness that there's oneness. So we have to lock that in and understand that at such a deep level. It's not a head conversation. It's a heart and a soul conversation. So once we know that, then I am. It's very easy to go past your critical brain, the unconscious that wants to argue with everything by saying, well, if God is all there is, then I am one with it. Because that's the only place that that would make any sense. You can't say God is everywhere, God is all there is, and oh, by the way, I'm over here. I'm not part of it. That defeats what you just declared to yourself. So I am, the second step would be, therefore, good exists everywhere. I am one with it and one with infinite good. Or you can put God in there for that word. I know with absolute certainty that I am alive and aware that there is a creative process in and around me, and I am part of that one infinite reality, and I express its characteristics. And since I am a manifestation of God, my ideas and thoughts are the outpouring of its perfection made manifest. I am consciously connected to and unified with the divine presence that harvests good in my life. So you can see that the first thing that we've done is we've declared that everything is one and then connected it to the fact that if everything is one, I am one with it. That's it. But once you get that integrated into your beingness, it's like, well, I them am perfect, whole, complete, divine, eternal, everything. And when it comes to really allowing that to be who you are being in any given moment, lights start to light up for you. I mean, things become the destinies, synchronicities, they start to show up because you're really integrating who you are in this big scheme of things. Because we aren't little, we aren't nothing, we aren't not special. We are special, we are unique, and we are expressing this unique individualization of this one as these beings, these little God beings that we are on this planet. So I want to take a breath because that was a lot of data. And if you have any questions up until this point, does anyone do prayer journals? I don't have a prayer journal myself. I journal. I've been so immersed in this version of praying for so long that it is so quick. It's almost like looking at the kids' version of that. God is, I am, I realize this. Thank you. And I release. It really is that simple. I think that's part of the problem that we have with prayer. And we also wonder sometimes, are our prayers being answered? And the answer is yes, they're always being answered. And I did last week was on intuition of allowing yourself to really grasp how to listen to those whispers of what? God. Well, also, what are those whispers of? They're of our own soul, our own spirit, our own beingness. So when we're able to listen and really look for expressions of what those answers to questions are that we have, they show up everywhere because we're looking for them. So part of this is allowing ourselves to know that our prayers are always answered. And yet it's always about grounding ourselves in this realization of what it is that we're praying for. Now, when I say praying for, it's just a shift in our consciousness, in our way that we're seeing the world. So now I want to look at some of what it might look like as a realization, because this is where the meat of it is. Okay, we've declared that we know that there's only oneness. I am part of the oneness, so therefore I am unique, divine, perfect, and whole. And then I know. So this is the realization. So I want to read a couple of these because it's really so key to seeing that we're not also praying for stuff. Like a lot of times we pray for things, and what I really want to get, and this is going to be that this would be a whole another study group, is the feelings that we want to have. So I've been teaching abundance for, I don't know, 3 decades now. And when we talk about abundance, people naturally think that means money. And abundance is just the abundance, the wealth that you have in your life, which can be in so many different ways. So let's say you wanted to pray for a house. It's about what is that house going to give to you? What are the things that you want to experience and feel in that house? But for purposes of this, I want to just use a couple of these simple ones. And I know this realization step is I recognize spirit as omnipresent, always in its right place. This knowing I apply to my place of residence. So this is about a prayer for the peace and safety of your home. Where I am to live in order to best fulfill my purpose and contribution to the whole is evidence and demonstrates easily. So I think it was last week somebody was looking for a place to live at a certain time, and this would be something that would fit very well into that conversation. So this is another thing that we also can put into the realization part. I release any attachment to any residence. This is one of the things that I see more often than anything else in manifestation conversations, in the, Rhonda Byrne's The Secret, how to get what you want, right? Put a timeline on it. All of that, as far as I'm concerned, is BS. It's about releasing any attachment to what you are desiring and what form it takes, because it really is micromanaging. And I always loved when I learned way, way, way back when it's this or better, and not the house per se, although you use a house to envision something, but it's the feelings that it gives you. And to follow up on that one, any ideas that are not correct now are removed from me in ways that most benefit me and others. So it's really key to begin to understand that we're also not just doing this for ourselves, because if we're part of the whole, then we're praying for ourselves and the whole. So whatever is for the highest and best of all is really key to putting into our prayers. This would be another one about a realization. I now plant the seeds of a positive consciousness within the universe. I know each and every thought I entertain is one that uplifts and creates with the law. So I call consciousness the law because it does it automatically. It's not something that we have to be better for or we have to perform for. It rains on the just and the unjust alike. It works always. So loving, caring, and nurturing attention is carefully and thoughtfully placed on the things that I seek or I choose to sow in my realization. My ideas are free flowing, and the demonstration I experience are the new foundation upon which I place my faith and belief. I live in harmony with the universal law. These are realizations, right? They're downloads of recognizing that we are infinite abundance. We are infinite joy. We are infinite beings. And it's really key to that first two steps to get that to the realization step. There's two more on here. I see and understand there can be no illness or disease in spirit. So this would be for somebody that wasn't well, and you're treating for yourself as knowing that truth for someone else. If you indeed are praying for somebody, and I always recommend you want somebody's permission because that is what brings this connection in. But when you can say, I can see and understand there's no illness or disease in spirit, it doesn't say, please remove that disease. It just acknowledges that there is no disease or illness in spirit. Spirit can create anything unlike itself. So, or cannot create. So only harmony exists in divine creation. I know there is a pattern of perfection built into every cell and molecule of my body, ensuring harmony with every organ and tissue. As such, flawless bodily function is mine now. Any belief not totally aligned with spirit is released, and I manifest perfect health. So, what I love about that is I was diagnosed with rectal cancer in 2017 and I had multiple surgeries, and every single surgery, because your mind is always awake and it can hear even when you're asleep, or it registers and in surgery. And so I would do treatments or spiritual mind treatments and prayers, and I would give it to the staff and the doctor on one occasion because they're very busy people, but I had them read it out loud in the operating room because I could hear it and so could the staff there. It was beautiful. I believe that that created exactly where I am today, which is cancer free. So those are the three major steps. Now, I want to divert just a little bit to go over the Lord's Prayer so you can just see how they connect with one another. Go to page 3 on the Google Drive. In the Lord's Prayer, it talks about our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, is translated in Aramaic to O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos. A quick history lesson of when Jesus was born and was out there preaching, and they were talking in Aramaic. This was right after a time when we went from a matriarchal society to a patriarchal. And so at that time, there were still deities being women. So when it says mother, father, or father, mother, it's because that was the essence of what they believed then, which I still do believe, that this is what's happening is it's all oneness. So it's acknowledging the divine source in the King James Version, which is our Father which art in heaven, and the Aramaic, which is O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos. I mean, to me, Father, Mother of the cosmos sounds a lot cooler, but it is what it is. That's how they translated it. And it's honoring this sacred nature. So it's not just Father, but source. Womb, this creator of all. So you can see that when Jesus did the Lord's Prayer, he literally was saying this big giant oneness that we're all swimming around in. Hallowed be thy name, which is still in the first step. And the Aramaic is focus your light within us, make it useful. That's beautiful. Focus your light within us. So focus the light in me, which is what we do when we're in this recognition stage. We are just acknowledging that God is all there is, and the light is in me, and I'm asking that it be part of me. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done is the unification step here. And it says in Aramaic, create your reign of unity now. So, in other words, bring it all together so that I'm really understanding that this oneness, that I am part of it. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven is literally in Aramaic, your one desire acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. In other words, I'm here acknowledging that everything is in divine order. And that's the one thing I think that we miss so much in life is we don't believe that there is this divine order, that there's chaos, that something isn't going right, and that somehow I need to fix it when the reality is everything is working in our favor. And if you haven't got my meditation on that, then be sure to do that after we go through this, because it's a beautiful meditation first thing in the morning, 5 minutes. Everything is working in my favor. Give us this day our daily bread. This is the realization step in the Lord's Prayer, and this is in Aramaic. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. In Aramaic, loosen the cords of mistakes binding us as we release others. How beautiful is that? Really, that beautiful realization that we are everything we need. Everything we need is available to us. Thanksgiving, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, releasing these energetic blocks and clearing resentment and guilt and shame and loosening the cords of mistakes that are binding us. Because those are the things that there isn't anything that isn't available to us. The only thing that keeps us stuck is ourselves. So when we open up to that receiving, things become absolutely magical. And then lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Don't let surface things delude us, is basically the Aramaic on that. Let go of control. Let go of control. That releasing step is so important in that beautiful Lord's Prayer. And then to really dive deeper into it. Aramaic was such a beautiful language, and it was full of nuances, and it was full of grace, and was full of energy. And so we've kind of diluted it a little bit down into this English language. But the fact is that it's still there and powerful, that those 5 steps have been there for us all this time. And we just literally have to begin to open up. I want to practice a little bit for you because practicing solidifies what we're doing. And the next thing you can do is teach it to somebody else. So, the thing that I want you to do is I want you to just close your eyes for a second, take a breath, Place your hand on your heart. And this isn't about saying or writing the right words. This is simply about acknowledging your heart and remembering the truth of who you are. So feel that in your body, not in your mind. I want you just to write yourself a short prayer for something that's calling you from your heart right now. Your soul is whispering to you. Maybe it's about health. Maybe it's about wealth. Maybe it's about a place to live. Maybe it's about a job. Maybe it's about just the guidance. But just know what you are going to pray for, or at least write a prayer for in this moment. And then open your eyes. That drive, it'll guide you through it, but I'll do that with you. We're going to do step 1, recognition. God is. So in your own words, this doesn't, you can look at what I shared with you on the drive. You can do whatever has come to you from sometime in your life, but let your heart guide you. So what do you know about this oneness, this source, this life? How would you describe presence of this oneness in your own words? And write that down. It can be as little as a few words, a sentence, a little bit longer. As I said, this isn't about pontificating. This is about really acknowledging that oneness. You can write it in the chat because I would love to hear all of these beautiful versions of that God is infinite love, always present, always working in my favor. Just take this moment for yourself right now and do this 5-step prayer so that you'll have something to begin to really integrate into your life how to do this thing called praying. When you're done, you type in done in the chat and then I'll move on. Oh, perfect. God is all, the encompassing of every breath, every heartbeat, every energetic vibration, everything. Beautiful. So succinct, so beautiful, so authentic, so genuine. I love that. Thank you, Brandy. All right, step 2. This is where we're unifying. I am. So claiming your oneness with that same power. If God is all there is, I am. How is that same power alive in you? So that is our next step. Feel this. Feel this in your soul. If God is all there is, what is that? How does that align you with every desire that you could ever dream of? If God is all there is, I am one with it. I am infinite potentiality. I am infinite possibility. I am a divine expression of the one. So, write in your own words, if you take this bigness of God is all there is, I am also one with that. What does that look like for you? Okay, so step 3 is this realization. This is really the meat of a prayer. And it isn't, so when I do this 5 steps, we don't start about the realization at the top, right? Because the realization in the beginning is that God is all there is. And a lot of times people pray, it's like, please heal whoever, or please stop something, or please change whatever. Our function in the world is not to change anything. Ours is to realize the essence of who we are, the magnificence of who we are, the oneness of who we are. So when you're declaring and you're in your realization, what are you going to experience as a result of that? What are you going to become? What energy are you allowing in to realize that you are ultimate health, ultimate wealth, ultimate well-being, ultimate joy? That is your nature. And what we have done is we've covered it up with so many things that we have forgotten our nature. So, what does it feel like that it's already done? So, whatever that prayer is that's in your heart right now, just begin to, and you can start out with, it's really simple to begin with when you start doing this type of praying. I realize and I recognize that, and then fill in the blank. I realize and recognize that there is only abundance in the universe, that I am the natural receiver of abundance, that I create and co create with the one all of the abundance that I could ever need or desire in this life. You see what I'm doing? I'm not asking for $1 million, which it's not relevant because the universe has one language, and that's energy and feeling and frequency. So when you begin to feel that inside of you, this is not an affirmation, this is a knowingness. This is where the shift happens. And you do prayers or spiritual mind treatments until you feel the shift. Because if we're just talking, we aren't feeling the shift. This is a feeling experience. This is an integration. This is an alignment. This is absolutely the essence of what these prayers are, so that you align with the truth of who you are. So, another one, I recognize and realize that I am infinite health, that there is no disease, there is no illness within this oneness. So anything that I see outside of that is not the truth of who I am. So you get the idea, but I want you to just write your own version of your own realization. And I didn't really say this at the beginning, but this took me one whole semester, when I was becoming a spiritual practitioner, to learn. So I'm giving it to you in an hour, which is a little bit overwhelming and feeling like we're drinking out of a fire hose. But I wanted to leave you with something that you can actually start doing immediately, of really understanding how do we align ourselves and how do we remember the truth of who we are, which are these beautiful divine beings. So take a minute and write your realization step. Brandy, I love that. So if you feel like you want to put it in there, it may be longer than what you want to put in the chat, which is fine. I want to go quickly into the last two steps, and I don't want to throw them away, but I do want to conclude that since it's been almost an hour. I can't believe that. So the Thanksgiving, as I said, this is so important to be grateful for what we know is already being done in energetic form. It is in the law right now, and it is happening right now. So, how can you express gratitude? I think it's so lovely when we are grateful to anybody. If you're out about in the world, or you go to a coffee place or the supermarket, and you're just grateful for the people that are there who are serving you in the capacity of employees, or somebody at your work, or even your family members, to really begin to learn that gratitude is the gateway to everything. So, in this Thanksgiving step, it's literally, you could just say thank you, or you can feel it more genuinely in your heart. If saying thank you is genuine and it comes from that energetic level, that's all you need to do. It doesn't have to be really something overly, as I said, flowery or verbose. It's just about that knowingness, that integration of that gratitude, that what we are aligning ourselves and remembering who we are is already done, because we're never shifting anybody else. We're always shifting ourselves into alignment, because we're just out of alignment. That's all this is when we feel uncomfortable and things aren't going our way. We just want to come back into alignment. And a lot of times it's just our intuition is guiding us in a direction that we aren't going. So it may feel a little bit uncomfortable. If somebody pushes you some way, sometimes you fall down and you get a scrape on your knee and you think, wow, that wasn't very comfortable. But here's the thing, that's what the universe is doing all the time, because it knows our heart, and our heart is always giving us the exact mirror of what it is that we are feeling inside. So, gratitude is the activation, and then the release. And as I said, it's so important to release and really feel that release. So it isn't, okay, I surrendered it. And then if you plant a seed, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I have. You plant a seed in a garden and you're like, when are you growing? When are you growing? And sometimes I've even been known to dig up the seed or look into the dirt and say, are you growing yet? So when we are not surrendering, we're allowing that seed to not grow because we're still in fear. We're still micromanaging. We're still holding on so tightly. So surrendering and releasing is so critically important in this last step. And so, how can you say, I release and I let go? Maybe it's as simple as that. And I often say, and I know with full confidence that this is coming back to me in form exactly as I have prayed for it, because it is the mirror of everything that we experience in our lives. Whatever we believe, that's what we see outside of us. And if we want to see something else, we have to check our believer, because our believer is what's actually the language of the universe. So you can write the thank you and the release. And I just wanted to read that out loud, Brandy's step one and step two, because the thing about it is it's so beautiful, but it's you, it's your life, it's your energy, it's your words. So if we were just to start with this: God is all, the encompassing of every breath, every heartbeat, every energetic vibration, everything. I am all, divine light of creation, the expression and reflection of unconditional love. And then she will do her realization and her release and her Thanksgiving and her release, which is so beautiful because you can just make this so quick and so easy. And if you do this every morning, every afternoon, and every evening, you will begin to see really some major shifts in your life, because you will be in alignment. You will be in realization. You will be in that remembering. And that's the beauty of who we truly are. So I really appreciate you guys coming tonight. And I wanted to keep this right within an hour. It really is a beautiful 5-step process, and prayer works. I will say that. So you guys have an amazing evening, and thank you very much. We'll see you next time.